Good morning. It was a mild, grey and cloudy day. It is Tuesday the 29th of August. I've got a nice hot cup of tea and a rather heavy box to delve into. So let's start with, if it's free, here we go. This Wild West. And there's some extra things in here, not quite sure what. But so, a role-playing game set in the Old West by Anthony P. LeBoutillier and Gerald D. Seypura, published by Fantasy Games Unlimited. This was the Wild West role-playing game published by Fantasy Games Unlimited, FGU. Okay, there's also of other things in here which basically these were placed in there for storage purposes, but underneath we have that, and so let's have a look. Now, I'd never actually seen this before, so I thought, yes, I will grab it because it's going to be interesting, because when everyone thinks of an early Wild West role-playing game, there's only one role-playing game they think of, and that's Boot Hill. But there were others, but they never really, I don't think they really found much of a fan base, because Boot Hill was published by TSR, so it was the big role-playing company. And when you look for other role-playing games, well, what else do you go, okay, well, they produce Dungeons and Dragons, what else do they produce? And it wouldn't really be until the advent, I don't think of Deadlands in 1996, 1997, which would really bring back the idea of playing a Wild West campaign or role-playing game to most role-playing groups. So, this is quite a nice, clean copy, and it very much looks like a Fantasy Games Unlimited role-playing game. Forward, introduction, and so on. What else you require, which essentially was 3 6-sided dice and 2 20-sided dice, and the role, talking about die rolls, game master, player and player characters, and so on, NPCs. Standard kind of introduction you would get for a role-playing game. And then we get into how to create a character, and also dealing with things like victory conditions for play. So personal characteristics and how to generate them, plus things like height, strength, and so on. These are secondary, oddly, and then you can create the background. Not, the problem is sort of there's quite a lot of text there, not a lot to break it up. And then just things like break up of all your hit points and so on across this, distribution of hit points across the various body, chest, arms, legs, that sort of thing. That change. You hear things in rules in here for travelling with wounded, infection, and types of treatment. And the types of treatment include dressing only, dressing and clean, disinfected, or use the fire hot blade will cause 3 extra damage. Will stop the bleeding. Use of gunpowder, whiskey, medicinal alcohol, and carbolic acid, and then we have the role-playing and probability chart. This chart will refer us that the RPC incorporates a unique method of resolving the actions, succeeding in his attempts to perform various tasks. So it's sort of like a one-roll system. And then essentially the player characters do have some skills. So we've got archery, assayer, marksmanship, map maker, telegraph operator, and so on. Notes in here for things, what happens when you fumble. So for gambling, The other card players in the game have received the PC as a cheating. Whether or not this is the case, the PC should be prepared to be run out of town at the very least. And then we notes on languages and even mule skinning. Basically, it's the ability to handle mule for hauling freight rather than actual skinning mules. So all of these occupations and skills, including whip, wrangler, and more. Establishing additional skills not listed, so there's options for that. You've got employment pay scale, and then gambling procedure, and a list of equipment. And here we've got sort of, all the tables for pistols and shotguns. And there is a map. I'll show you those maps in a minute. And then hand weapon effects and cost, missile weapons, firearms adjustments. So detailed rules for handling those elements, including explosives, dynamite, and black powder. And then movement, draw pistol actions you can put, in play. How many round segments do they take? And then we get into the combat system. Essentially, you sort of program segments, essentially, and then you play those out. And then we have more detailed rules for inflicting damage, damage factors, and damage effects per location. And then we have options for other things like handling things like the cattle drive. I mean, there's a whole supplement, the Knuckle Duster Guide to cattle drives. I think is really very good. And then got a list of well-known cattle brands, essentially the markers, what you would sort of like you would brand your cattle with, and things other elements of the setting like mule trains, railroads, stagecoaches, the military and their forts and patrols, supply trains. Discusses the Indians and using Indians as NPCs. You've got an encounter chart. With some designer notes at the end. And then we have a map of Dodge City. I mean, we'll show you the big map and individual locations. So the Great Western Hotel. And at the Wright Brewery Company. Brewery. Dodge Hotel. House Hotel. Bob Wright's home, Union Church, and Dodge House. So that's the core rule, but also what we have here is a map. This is going to be double-sided, so what you've got on one side is a map of the sort of like from Texas up to the Midwest. And on the other you have a street map of Dodge City. So almost like it's almost like following the kind of format of Boot Hill itself, where you're sort of like supposed to play out gunfights and encounters on the streets of Boot Hill. So that's the map. Let's slot that back in there, and you can tell that this is slightly. I mean, however conditioned this is, you have slightly rusted staples there, and then beneath that you have a couple of things, and these include character sheet. Basically with locations and sort of like places record your damage according to location, combat record, and then determining actions and the results. We have reference sheets for movement and skill list, condensed firearms and missile adjustments. This is the roll probability chart. So you'll only have that up in play. Blimey. Horse character sheet. Basically, somebody's photocopied these. So I've got a sheaf of these photocopies in here as well. And then we have the errata at the end. Additions to page 25, wind factors, horsage age, that sort of thing. So, yeah. That is Wild West, published by Fantasy Games Unlimited, 1979. A role-playing game set in the Old West. That's going to be interesting to look at in some detail, especially if it's almost a sort of like, you know, do a comparative review of that, perhaps with Boot Hill. As I say, a cultural oddity, something that was published but probably quickly forgotten, would have been reviewed at the time, maybe picked up a few adherents, but arguably been done better since in other systems. Even if you go just straight forward to something like supplements for GURPS, or the Hero System, or I said Deadlands, because all of those books would have been highly detailed and researched, as opposed to the relative brevity of essentially the background for these wars. So yeah, that's Wild West, published by Fantasy Games Unlimited, 1979, I believe. Anyway, hope you've enjoyed this unboxing in the Nook. If you have, then please do click on the like button down below. And if you've got any comments or feedback, I do appreciate you take the time to post those. And if you want to be alerted to get more unboxings in the Nook, where you'll see me out here with a box, quite a heavy box, from which I will unbox a role-playing game or a book or supplement, and chat about it to the best extent of my knowledge for roughly 10 minutes or so, all of course accompanied by a nice hot cup of tea. Then please do click on the subscribe button down below. Thanks again for watching another unboxing in the Nook. Be back again soon with another one. Bye for now.